Alors, attention tout le monde. Nous sommes le...
Order, everyone. We are the subcommittee rather, on international human rights of the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Development. And today, September 30th, 2014, our 35th meeting will take place.
Orders. We are looking today at the persecution of religious minorities in Iraq. We have with us today Reverend Majid al-Shafi, who is the founder and president of One Free World International. Reverend al-Shafi has come before this committee before on a variety of issues relating to religious liberty in different parts of what we could broadly describe as the Islamic world. Today he will be testifying on something that, of course, is very much top of mind to many people, and that is the situation in Iraq, based, I believe, on some personal experience visiting with some MPs last summer. So, Reverend al-Shafi, I invite you to begin your remarks. When they're over, we'll go to our normal questions. The timing of each question will depend on how much time is left available at the end of your introductory remarks. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, forgive me. I'm just trying to. I couldn't hear you very well. And I'm trying to do this, and I'm not very successful.
We will send up our clerk immediately. Actually, Madame la Secrétaire, take this, please. Thank you.
Oh, that's, yes.
Oh, they wind them up sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know why they would do that.
One, two, three. Can you hear now?
Mr. Chair,
There we go.
Okay.
Yes, please begin.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you all for having me this afternoon, Mr. Chair and the Honorable Member of Parliament. I thank you for this opportunity to speak with you about the situation in Iraq, especially in Kurdistan, and how's the Iraqi been affected recently by the attacks from ISIS. My name is Reverend Majid al-Shafi. I'm the founder and president of One Free World International for Human Rights. I was a prisoner before in the Egyptian prison. I spent time in the Egyptian prison for fighting for human rights. I was in the Egyptian prison and I was tortured for my Christian belief. The fact that I'm here and the fact that I'm still alive is not less than a miracle. But it's extremely important to start this introduction for one simple reason and one simple fact. I'm not here just a man wearing a suit sitting behind his desk. I used to be one of the minorities that was in prison, that was tortured, was almost killed for their belief. One Free World International is a human rights organization based in Toronto. We have now branches in 28 different countries. Our main goal is to fight for the persecuted believers, whoever they are, if they are Hindu or Sikh or Christians or Muslims or whoever the religion or whatever their background, we are fighting for the minorities that facing persecution for their religious belief around the world. When it comes to Iraq, One Free World International laid 2 delegations to Iraq, one in September in 2011, and that was with Member of Parliament John Weston and Senator Don Meredith. They came with us at their capacity as observers. We was able to meet with different members of the Iraqi government. We was able to meet with victims. We was able to see some of the churches that was attacked and some of the worship places that was attacked, such as Our Lady of Salvation. Recently, One Free World International led another delegation to Iraq in August 30 of this year to September 1st of this month. Came with me 3 members of Canadian Parliament, again as their capacity as observers. One of them was my good friend and a dear friend of mine that I dare to call him a friend and a champion of human rights, Mr. Brad Butt. He's here with us. And Mr. Russ Hippard and Leon Penoy, sorry, Mr. Leon Penoy. 3 of them came with me, and we was able to go to Arbil in Kurdistan and was able to see the situation on the ground in Iraq, especially in the northern side in Arbil in Kurdistan and the Hook, which is the border city of Mosul. We visited 3 refugee camps. One of the refugee camps was a Christian refugee camp. The second refugee camp was Yazidis refugee camp. And the third one was a mix, Muslims, Christians, Yazidis, and other minorities. The situation on the ground in Kurdistan, you have to understand that as me and you talking right now, there is more than 1.6 refugees in the area of Kurdistan, all of them running away from the tortures and the attack that took place when ISIS attacked the region. One of the refugee camps that we visited, there was more than 500 children under the age of 3. The stories, when we met with the refugees face to face, the stories that we witnessed, one little girl, 8 years old, her name is Rahma, she lost her mom and dad when both of them died in explosion in Mosul. Another testimony that really touched my heart was from the Yazidi community. One of the victims that ran away to the Singar mountain, when ISIS attacked, many of the Yazidi community escaped immediately to the Singar mountain. Is estimated by over 50,000 from the Yazidi community escaped to Singar mountain. They tell you that in the first night, because of the lack of food and the lack of water, between 45 to 60 Yazidi child in the first night. Thank you so much. Thank you. One of these mothers that almost lost her child, in an order to maintain the life of her child, she cut her finger to feed her own child her own blood. And we was able to meet with this woman, and it breaks your heart. This is the situation on the ground. We witness Christians being crucified by ISIS. We witness young kids being attacked, being raped. We witness a group of females, women, that was kidnapped and was sold for the ISIS fighters with $20 apiece. They sold them like slaves for their own fighters, for their own pleasure. The situation on the ground, the persecution that facing the Christians minority in Iraq today, in the hand of ISIS, this is not brand new persecution. Christians have been persecuted in Iraq for the last 10 years and even more since the American invasion. But the problem with the Christians is that they get in the crossfire between the extreme Sunnis and the extreme Shias. So the persecution of Christians, this is not something new. And even the persecution of the Yazidis is not something new. But now we are speaking more about it because now ISIS attacked, and you can see this persecution increased in a major way. But for the last 10 years, our organization and the Iraqi community been crying out about the persecution that's taking place to their people, and nobody in the world remains silent about it, and that's the truth. We visited as well the medical center. We sat down with some of the doctors that deal with the situation. We discovered that one of the main needs that they need is medication. They don't have enough medication. All what's said and done, and all what we witnessed, I went as well to the front lines. I didn't take the member of parliament with me, the honorable member of parliament with me, simply because it will be unsecure. So we went to the front lines, and I met with the Peshmerga, which is the Kurdish troops in the front line. One of the soldiers is 65 years old. And when I asked him what you're doing here in the age of 65 years old, he said, I have to defend my country. We've been persecuted as Kurdish for many, many years. And I have to stay here to protect my country. And he's 65 years old fighting in the front lines. The situation in Iraq right now have all the signs for a genocide, have all the signs for the beginning of a genocide. Without our intervention, we are risking that we will empty the region, especially Iraq, from the Christian minorities, from the Yazidis minorities, from the other minorities as well, like the Mandiyas and so on and so forth. This has happened before in Iraq. This is not the first time. Some of you will say, well, this has never happened, that really you can empty the place from all the minorities. That's not correct. In 1941 in Iraq, there was a massacre against the Jewish people by the name Farahud. And between 200 to 700 Jewish people was killed, Jewish personnel was killed in this day, and more than 2,000 was injured in this massacre in 1941. And from the year 1948 to 51, it was the exodus of the Jewish people out of Iraq. And now, Iraq, to the best of my knowledge, does not have even one Jewish person. One of these victims of Farahud massacre, sitting down behind me, Ms. Noga Barbagan. Can you please stand up? Thank you. Sit down. My recommendation. Our Canadian government, and I'm very thankful to our Canadian government, we present aid, $28 million, the total Canadian aid to Iraq since the beginning of 2014, $28 million. In August 10, $5 million in humanitarian aid, followed by new military aid, $15 million, $10 million for non-lethal military equipment to secure forces combating ISIS, $5 million to support regional effort to limit the movement of the foreign fighters into Iraq and Syria, and new humanitarian aid was $7 million, $5 million for emergency shelter relief equipment as well, and $2 million for urgent care services in the region. Our recommendation, number one, with regard to aid, one big secret word here is accountability. We are very known that when we are giving aid to countries, that we don't have accountabilities with the government of this governments to ensure that the aid actually ending in the hands of the people that they needed. The truth and the reality, when I took the Iraqi first trip, and I had with me Mr. John Weston and Senator Dummer, and they are witness on what I'm saying. We met with the Vice President of Iraq, we met with the Vice Prime Minister of Iraq, we met with the Foreign Affairs Minister, we met with the Human Rights Minister, and one of them, Canada at this point, gave more than $300 million as aid to the Iraqi central government. When we asked where did the $300 million went, the response from the Iraqi government was, we don't know. They don't know where is our money went. They don't know where is our tax money went. So as we are giving this aid to Kurdistan or to Iraq, we have to have accountability. We have to know where this money went and to ensure that the aid is actually ending in the hands of the people that they really need it. The second thing with regard to aid, that we have to have a conditional. We have to have a condition. We'll continue in your support. We'll continue aiding you if you protect human rights in your country, if you protect women's rights, if you improve your human rights situation. We cannot just give aid without a condition. All what I am saying, if we are giving aid, let's ensure that this aid not only will be used for the people that need aid, but to ensure that this government, the Kurdish government, or the Iraqi central government, will be able to protect women's rights, human rights, the freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is the foundation of democracy. Without freedom of religion, there will not be democracy. Because if you took from the man and woman what they believe, you took from them everything else. This is with regard to aid. In the aid, we have to focus on medicine and shelter. The winter is coming in 4 weeks. The people are sleeping in tents. They need shelter, and they need it now, or a lot of them will die in the cold. And this is 4 weeks away. It's not that far away. With regard as well, our recommendation, with regard to airstrikes and the military involvement, the Canadian military involvement, airstrikes is very important to protect the minority and to push ISIS back and to stop their advances. However, airstrikes will not win you the war. Airstrikes will not win you the war. The minute that we start the airstrikes, and we already are, and the surprise element already disappeared, I promise you that ISIS will start to blend in within the civilians, within the locals. It will be impossible, almost impossible, to hunt them down with airstrikes without hurting the civilian population. So as much as airstrikes is important, as much as it will not the one that will have a resolution with regard to ISIS. So how we can defeat ISIS, especially in Iraq, how we can defeat ISIS? Two things. Number one, we have to cut the lifeline of ISIS financially. ISIS supported by governments like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Turkey. We have to punish the governments who support ISIS and supporting them with supplies or finance, and on the top of this, buying from them the oil. The revenue of black oil, almost between $2 to $3 million a day. All of this have to be cut, and I know that the Americans start to strike the oil field in Syria and Iraq just to stop this part. But it's very important that we look at government that support ISIS, and you have to ask yourself question, why 2 Americans hostage and 1 British hostage was beheaded, while 49 Turkish hostage was released the next day? What is the deal between Turkey and ISIS that make Turkey secure the releasing their hostage? And the Americans and the British, they couldn't. We have to punish the government that cooperate and coordinate with ISIS. This is number one, how to defeat ISIS. Number two, how to defeat ISIS. The reconciliation within the Iraqi government. I need to tell you something very important. I don't know if you know it from the news or not, but here's the truth. ISIS, when they entered Iraq with forces of 1,500 to 1,800 soldiers. 1,500 to 1,800 soldiers, ISIS entered Iraq. It's impossible with 1,500 to 1,800 soldiers that you can take 40% of the country in few days, include the second largest city in Iraq, which is Mosul. It's impossible. ISIS couldn't do this without the support of the Arab Sunni tribes. Because after years and years of persecution from the Shia's Maliki government, the Sunnis said, enough is enough, I will cooperate even with the devil. That doesn't mean that the Sunnis is bad. It just simply means that they are forced to cooperate with ISIS because they was tired of the abuses and the persecution that facing from the Shia's government, the Maliki government. Not all from the Shias, but the Shia Maliki government. And what's happening that to start reconciliation, that's how you defeat ISIS in Iraq. You have to start reconciliation within the Iraqi government where you can include all the minorities, Sunnis, Christians, Yazidis, Shabak, Kakiyas, whoever they are. And you have to give them the right of self-governor, even if it came to that, to protect them. And once the situation is settled, you have to have a international peacekeepers troops to protect the minorities and in order for them to feel secure to return back again to their home. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, I finished my testimony. Would you allow me to have the last 2 minutes as my closing remark, please? After the questions.
We'll certainly try to do that. I'm going to, on the suspicion that we may run a little over time, I'm going to ask the indulgence of the committee at seeing the clock generously towards the end of the meeting. We might perhaps, in practice, go a little beyond 2 p.m. But I'll just say this, it's all dependent on everybody being efficient in their questioning and the answers as well so that we have the time for that. So everybody, let's keep our remarks short. We have enough time for 6-minute question and answer rounds for each of our questioners. Hopefully that'll leave us with enough time for that 2 minutes at the end, Reverend Al-Shafi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. We begin with Mr. Sweet.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to make a little brief statement myself first. The notion of the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, or the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, I consider those titles actually unacceptable and repugnant, and the whole notion that this terrorist group is an Islamic State. So I just want to have that on record, number one, myself. Number two, I know Reverend Al-Shafi did not intend this because he was testifying at large volume, but I want to make sure that there's no ambiguity in respects to the government's position or my position that you know, no amount of persecution justifies the kind of terrorism that we're seeing. In fact, it's kind of interesting that Reverend Al-Shafi mentions how the years and years of persecution of minorities and Christians in Iraq, and of course no such action at all has ever been taken whatsoever. So I want to make sure that there's no justification whatsoever of taking innocent people and beheading them or crucifying them, or some of the things that we've seen that are just humanly barbaric and to a magnitude that we haven't seen. Reverend, thank you first off for the courage of going on the ground and bringing back some information that is not only very relevant from the ground but very current. I want to ask you about the marking of the doors of Christians particularly, but first I want to ask you, what is the situation for Muslims who are peace-loving and moderate in Iraq? Are they suffering at the hands of the extremist elements in Iraq as well?
First of all, thank you, Mr. David Sweet, for your question. The last refugee camp when we went, it was a mixed refugee camp, and which is mean that we met as well with some of the Muslim families that have been affected. And I can tell you that yes, the moderate Muslims, the love peace Muslims, they are affected as well, because ISIS, I believe that ISIS doesn't know religion. That's truly my belief. The fact that ISIS now is fighting with the Kurdish government, or Kurdistan, which they are majority Muslim Sunnis. They are the same, they are not Shias. It does shows you that they don't care what belief you are. However, I will point strongly that the biggest dilemma that facing Islam today as a faith and as a belief, not the rising of the extremists, but the silence of the moderate Muslims. I will point that the moderate Muslims today, they should play bigger role in fighting this extremist and showing the world that if this is true Islam or not true Islam. And sadly, what I am seeing that the moderate Muslims in Canada and elsewhere, in Iraq, in the United States, they are very silent. And this is, I believe that this is a very weak point on their side.
Reverend, The marking of the doors of Christians particularly is very troubling. Did you meet any of those people who had their doors marked and were fleeing from, I'm not going to finish your answer, but what would they be fleeing if their door was marked with a Christian symbol in Arabic by these terrorists?
Yeah. Well, the door, let me just explain it quickly. The door is marked by the noon, the letter noon in Arabic. Letter noon standing for Nusrani, which is Christian. So it's the first word of Christians, or Christian. And it's bring the memory. Of course, we met some of these people, especially in the first refugee camp in Arbil, when we went to the Catholic Church there. And it's bring the memory back to us in the Holocaust, when they used to mark the Jewish people with the Star David. And it's the same concept, basically, that they mark your door, and you will give you three options. Once this mark on your door, you have three options. You get killed, or you pay extra tax, what's known by al-jizya, or you convert to Islam. And this is the meaning of the mark on the door. And
now you mentioned being in Kurdistan. How many of the refugee camps are actually in Kurdistan, and are the Kurdish forces protecting those? Are they managing and protecting those camps?
There is, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know exactly how many refugee camps there, but because not all of them refugee camps. Some of them, they will be in empty buildings that is not built yet. Some of them will be in a church. Some of them will be even in some homes or garden or in the street. So there is no way to pinpoint exactly how many refugee camps is there.
So these are not sophisticated United Nations refugee camps. These are makeshift groupings of people trying to huddle together to protect themselves.
Absolutely. And we went to some of the refugee camps that made by the tens of the UNHCR. Like we went to both of them. But I can tell you the majority, it just wherever there is an empty space, they will just put people there and they will keep them there. At least they have a place to sleep in. Sorry, what was the second part of the question? How many there? How many refugee camps and?
It was mostly about Kurdistan, but you were. How was my
the Kurdistan.
Okay. Thank you, Reverend.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome again, Reverend. It's the number of times you've been here as a witness on many fronts around the world that you've traveled to in the name of humanitarian aid. It's really interesting for me because you're validating today some of the information that has come to the official opposition about the situation over there. Following the United States leaving the country, the Prime Minister al-Maliki turned on the people that used to support Saddam, from what my understanding is, and basically, as well, the army wasn't being paid properly. And as you indicated, when the 1,800 to 2,000 crossed the border to invade, and something like 5 regiments laid down their arms.
That's correct.
And those 5 regiments could have put an end to it right there.
Absolutely, that's correct.
If it hadn't been, in my belief, the political distortion that happened in the interim between that time and when the Americans first left. They've replaced that Prime Minister now, and hopefully things will improve on that front. You talked about aid and the need for immediate aid, and of course, this group will be pleased to hear the word accountability in there, because that's one of the things we'd be very concerned with, is how the dollars would be spent that would go over there. In a time of crisis in any nation, they could get diverted into military, even if we wanted them to go to humanitarian. So we have to find a way to do that. So my question to you, from your perspective, Canada will have a limited amount of resources to put into this, whether it be military or whether it be humanitarian aid. Would you say that humanitarian aid is more important than military at this juncture?
I would say that both of them will complete each other. Just to be honest and to be clear, without taking any position of any political party, but the truth and the reality, if there is no security on the ground, the humanitarian aid will not do anything. If the refugees is not secure, if their borders is not secure, if Kurdistan is not secure as a country and as a nation, will not be able to aid 1.6 million refugees and displaced persons. What I am really saying that you cannot take both of them and divide them to two pieces. Both of them have to work together and have to complete each other, security and humanitarian aid.
Well, we have a situation where we now have Britain involved, you have the United States, you have France involved. From my perspective, that's a pretty heavy-duty military action underway already, and the forces of those countries combined certainly would offset anything that Canada would even begin to put in there. Would it not be better for us to take the humanitarian front, allowing the other nations to put the monies and effort into the military side while we put the majority, if not all of ours, into humanitarian aid?
I believe that if we did it in a balanced way, that we can, definitely the Peshmerga, they need military aid and support, definitely, that's 100%. And when we went to the front lines, we spoke with the people from the Peshmerga troops, and they definitely need the aid.
Well, I'm not in disagreement with you of that
Yes.
aid going there. What I'm saying, the best positioned countries to do that is Britain, U.S., and France. And I think Australia's just gotten involved too. I may be mistaken in that. But from a military standpoint, they're far equipped for advanced moves in the area. Canada is less so inclined, and the other aspect of whether or not boots are on the ground over there is still in debate even in the U.S. But for an immediate action, if we start the preparations, as you say, for the winter that's coming on and start the humanitarian aid flowing and count on the other nations to support that effort.
Mr. Marston, to be honest with you, I'm not a military expert as well. I'm scared that to answer the question, it will not be fair to the need on the ground military-wise. My advice is to do it in a balanced way that both military and humanitarian is completing each other.
Well,
and that's how I see it.
there's certainly sense to that, because the humanitarian aid would need to be protected, because the moment people go for the aid, they're at risk of being attacked. So how's my time, Mr. Chair?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Where would you suggest, you know, again, we have limited resources that we would put our aid into it. Where would you suggest the need is most important at this juncture? And is there a place that we would phase in where we would try to target our aid?
I would say that the humanitarian will be, of course, the people is the most important. I would say that as we're giving the humanitarian, we have to make sure as well that the people is secure. That will be my answer.
But I'm saying where specifically in the country?
In the humanitarian.
Is there a group more in need than another, for instance?
I would say all the groups need equally. I would say that.
Okay.
Okay. We'll go then to Mr. Kotler next, or Professor Kotler, and then we'll go back. That's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, want to commend Reverend Assad for being with us and once again providing timely and compelling testimony to us today, and really exposing ISIS as a case study, really, of our responsibility to prevent and protect against mass atrocity, particularly the targeting of religious minorities, Christians as a case study, and the genocidal actions against them. I have two questions. First is, ISIS, as you know, is not just in Iraq, it's also in Syria. And there were those of us who, 3.5 years ago, when the civilian protest began in Syria, which then was confronted by the assault from the Assad regime, disappearances, torture, bombing, all the things that we know about, who said that there was a need then to protect the minorities, to provide humanitarian, et cetera, et cetera. And we were told at the end of the first year, when there are only, quotation marks, 8,000 dead, that now there's more than 200,000, that if we were to intervene then, and it didn't have to even be military, all forms of it, this would lead to civil war, sectarian strife, jihadists, etc. Everything we were told would happen if we intervened happened, in my view, because of our inaction, because we didn't intervene. And so my question is, at this point, what options do we have in Syria? Because regrettably, we're not acting when we did. Are there any reasonable options? My second question is, ISIS is a cruel and barbaric face of radical Islam. I distinguish that from Islam. I want to make that clear, but radical, violent Islam. But it's not the only threat. We also have other radical Islamic groups, which you know only too well, whether it be Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, whether it be Hamas and Hezbollah, that are both supported, while the one is Sunni and the other is Shiite, by Iran, which has boasted of arming both this summer, etc. So the question is, the first, any good options for Syria? The second, what about the other critical mass of threat?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cutler, for your question. As usual, your questions is very simple, but yet very complicated. Let's backtrack a little bit about ISIS. Who is ISIS? Let's just backtrack a little bit about that. You need to understand that ISIS is a branch of Al-Qaeda. The leader of ISIS, by the name Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri, wanted ISIS to focus on Iraq, to focus their territory in Iraq, and wanted Jabhat al-Nusra, which is another branch of Qaeda, to focus on Syria. That's when Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi disagreed with Ayman al-Zawahiri and separated together, and now ISIS become separately from Al-Qaeda. But ISIS is the child of Qaeda, but they disagreed together on the territory, which territory belonged to you, which territory belonged to me. What's happened that now ISIS was created, was born, and we can see the monster that we see right now. With regard to the situation in Syria, the world did too little, too late, that now the problem is literally way bigger than us. We have two devils to deal with it, and we have to choose between the two devils, the Assad regime or the extremist groups. Now, the only way that we can have a sense of fixing, that we can cooperate with local groups, that we have the sense from them that maybe they are modern enough, or they have the sense of democracy, or they will be able to ensure kind of protection to the minorities. However, history teaches us, especially the American history teaches us, that this is very a tricky game. Because when we supported Mujahideen during the Afghanistan war, United States supported Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden during the Mujahideen war in Afghanistan, turned against them. Supported Saddam Hussein during the Iranian war, the first Arab Gulf War, turned against them. Supported the rebels in Libya, killed their American ambassador 3 months later. So the truth and the reality, we have to choose the only solution, that we work with local groups that we trust. I will not name them because simply I don't trust any of them. We have to work with local groups to be able to get out of the problem in Syria. That's my simple answer. I hope that this answers you.
Yes, if you have a moment, just on what I said was the critical mass of threat from radical violent Islam, apart from the ISIS threat or Al-Qaeda threat. In other words, the overall threat.
The overall threat, which is the extremists. Well, we have to understand the story from the beginning. When the Arab Spring, what's so-called the Arab Spring, started, now we are discovering that the Arab Spring turned to be a cold, deadly winter. We all against the dictatorships. Please don't misunderstand me. We all against Mubarak, Gaddafi, Ali Abdullah Saleh, all of this, Ali Zain al-Abidin of Tunis. We all against all of these dictatorships. But the problem, when you take a dictatorship out, you create political vacuum. Who's using this political vacuum is the extremist. And that's what we saw happening in Libya. That's what we saw happening in Egypt when the Muslim Brotherhood took over. The extremists will be only defeated if we have the separation between the religion and the state. That's the only way to establish democracy in the Middle East, to have the separation between the religion and the state, and the freedom of religion to the minorities and protecting the minorities. But right now, because the political vacuum that was created, the extremists will increase and their influence increase for one simple reason, because there is no education. If we are talking about the Egyptian society, 30 to 40% of the Egyptians is illiterate. They don't know how to write and read their own name. Even if you reform the constitution, the Egyptians doesn't know what they are voting about. So they will follow the man that comes with a peer and say, follow me so you can go to heaven. And that's exactly what's happened. Education, education, education. to defeat the extremists in our Middle Eastern land. Thank you.
Thank you. We're out of time for that round. We'll go now to Ms. Graywall, please.
And, thank you, Mr. Al-Shafi, for your time today, and I deeply appreciate your passion and your commitment to fighting for the rights of religious minorities. Past Prime Minister of Iraq, Nouri al-Maliki, is blamed for creating favorable conditions for the formation of the Islamic State by ostracizing the Sunni Muslim community there through sectarian policies that favor the Shia minority. So in what way do you see that economic hardship and political apathy for Sunni Muslims in Iraq as linked to the formation of the Islamic State? And how does that get addressed? And what changes need to be made politically? Do you think that more favorable treatment of Sunnis would get rid of the support that Islamic State seems to have? Thank you.
I believe that if we are just talking about the situation in Iraq, I believe mainly because the Maliki government, which is Shia majority, mistreated the Sunnis and the other minorities, not just the Sunnis. We see that the Sunnis, as I mentioned before, had to cooperate with ISIS in order to get rid of this injustice that they face for the last 10 years. I believe treating the Sunnis, I believe if the Shia government start to deal with a reconciliation process where they can include the Sunnis, where they can include other minorities, not just the Sunnis, but other minorities such as the Christians, such as Yazidis, such as Mandis, but whoever they are. One of the requests of the Christian community, some of the Christian community in Iraq, for example, or in Kurdish area, that they are self-governor to protect themselves. What's happening right now, and this maybe will answer part of the question of Mr. David Sweet that he asked me, if the Kurdish troop protected the Christians there or not. You need to remember in the beginning when ISIS entered Kurdistan, many of the Kurdish troops left the minority behind and they left. They withdrew without even warning the troops, without even warning the minorities. So the Yazidis was left behind, the Christians was left behind, and that's how ISIS was able to make a lot of damage of them, because the Peshmerga did not protect them in the beginning. So we have to bring the situation in Iraq to reconciliation, not just with the Sunnis, with all the minorities altogether, with the majority. And after we settled and after we had this peace and reconciliation, which is very similar to what's happened in Lebanon, اتفاقية الطائف, the Ta'if agreement in 1988, I believe, that we have to, after the reconciliation take place, on the areas where the minorities, if they can have international troops to ensure, like peacekeeping troops to ensure their safety, that's the only way they will return home, because then they will feel secure. And they will reject ISIS.
I understand that the new Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi is from the same political party as Maliki, and so how are two different from one another? Is Abadi a positive change for Iraq's religious minorities there?
Al-Abadi, well, so far I don't see any different yet, to be honest with you. Like, Al-Abadi, he's talking the talk. It's just when he will walk the walk, that's a different story. But he definitely, the difference here is that they learned the lesson. They saw ISIS took over 40% of their country. They saw Mosul collapsing. So the lesson now is being learned. And let's hope that it's been learned forever, not just for a period of time, and after that the Shia government will repeat again its mistake. If there is one thing that I know, that a human being, in many cases in the history, repeat their mistakes. And what's the definition of insanity? is repeating the same action expecting different outcome. And that's insanity. So over and over we saw the Iraqi government acting in an insane way, and I hope that this is not the case.
Mr. Chair, do I have some more time left?
You do. You have 1 more minute.
The Islamic State has caused mass general displacement for people in Iraq, but you can elaborate on various religious minority groups that have moved to have most Christians, Zazdis, and other minorities that fled to different parts of Iraq and are now safe from persecution. So are there still living in a territory that is kind of controlled by Islamic State, and what is being done to protect, support, and provide relief for these people? What can Canada do to help in this area?
With the ones that was able to escape to Kurdistan, obviously they are under the protection of the Kurdish government. And what we can do is to help them on the ground. As I said, by the shelters and medications and secure the return home. The ones that still remain in ISIS territory, they are basically will be given 3 options to convert to Islam, or to be killed, or basically to pay extra taxes. And if they didn't, they will kidnap their woman, and they will sell them with $20 a piece. They will kill their children, and they will crucify them. That's basically what's happening to them right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, let's go now to Ms. Benskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you. This is my first time meeting you and hearing from you, and your knowledge and the information that you bring to the table is invaluable. I want to just sort of maybe pursue a bit of the line of questioning of my colleague earlier. I am by no means a military strategist myself, but being a former, if possible, former martial artist, we look at things in basically 2 options. You have an offensive posture, you have a defensive posture. For me, in this situation, the offensive posture would be, as you were saying, attacking the financial, for example, attacking the financial support and those governments, or penalizing those governments that are supporting ISIS. The oil fields, attacking the oil fields, basically cutting the lifeline off. That would be an offensive posture. The defensive posture I look at as being along the lines of what my colleague Mr. Marston was talking about in terms of humanitarian aid. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that there is a sort of a double element to that humanitarian aid. There is the need to provide the assistance, be it medical, shelter, but there also is the need to provide the defense of that, to make sure that those supplies get to the refugee centers, to make sure that the refugee centers are protected against any kind of invasion, any kind of hostage situation where people are held hostage for nefarious means. So with that, would you elaborate on how Canada could play that, possibly that defensive position in terms of making sure that refugees are protected, that the food, the medical aid that they need does get to them, so that things do not disintegrate in those centers?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, you have a Canadian embassy and you have ambassador. By the way, we met with the Canadian ambassador there, and he was doing a great job. He was going everywhere. Usually the Canadian ambassadors sitting down in their office doing nothing. Sorry, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. This is in record. So, but in this case, the Canadian ambassador in Iraq was doing a great job. He was going everywhere, ensuring that that there is a communication. He sees the situation on the ground. He went to Duhok, which is in the border with Mosul, So he was a very brave man, and I'm actually very proud of him as a Canadian ambassador to our country there. Your embassies have to be your eye in this area to ensure that the aid reaching the right people. When you are giving Kurdistan the aid, when you are giving governments the aid, I can assure you, it doesn't matter what government, if it's the center government of Iraq or the Kurdish government, I can assure you there is a corruption on the ground. I can assure you there is no way around it. So the parts that goes to the government, the Canadian embassy and our Canadian staffers have to know which project, have to visit this project, have to see what's happening, have to go there unannounced. You don't have to call the minister and tell him, oh, I'm coming to see the project today. Just grab your car and go there and see what's happening. So the accountability, number one, have to come from our embassy and our staffers. Number two, there is many organizations that they can be Canadian organization, but they have ground there. One of them here is Mr. Mazloum Baroughi, and he have an organization on the ground. Can you please stand up, please, if you don't mind? Thank you. Sit down. Thank you. Mr. Mazloum was my hand and feet on the ground there, and he have an organization that they are operating there. So he's under the Canadian law. So we can hold him as an account. That's just an example. I'm not basically pointing anybody. But I'm saying as an example, we can have a Canadian organization that going to do the work there, that they are accountable to us. They are from the local, they can be part of them from the local, like his Iraqi background, and we can cooperate with them to ensure that also the aid reaching the people. But when you give it just to the government and you leave it, that's waste of money.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess it's more of a comment than anything else. But what you were talking about, as far as the separation of church and state and so forth, I think we can break that down into its simplest form, and it's something that every country, including Canada, has experienced, for better or for worse, throughout its history, and that's inclusion. The religious minorities, or so-called religious minorities or ethnic minorities in every country. We see this a lot in African nations, where there are so many different so-called ethnic minorities in a given space that they don't always feel included. And it has led to some atrocious acts in various countries, and it's the same kind of thing that's happening here. And I'm not talking about ISIS as far as justification. What I'm talking about is what you were talking about in terms of what needs to happen in Iraq to begin to turn that around, which is inclusion, so that everybody feels that they're a part of the decision-making process and that they have a say in what happens to them. Would you think that is a reasonable assumption or a reasonable characterization?
I agree with you. One of the main problems that when we start the reconciliation process that they will start in Iraq, there is two ways that they will be taking. The first way, that they will have a meeting like this where they will serve tea and coffee and take some pictures and put it in the media, and the minute that you leave, it will be over and nothing will happen. It will be a nice meeting where they will take pictures, but nothing really will take place. And they will choose from the leaders, like from the Sunni leaders or from the Christian leaders or the Yazidis leaders, that they are also corrupted. So basically they will bribe them to keep them quiet, and this will be there. So this is one way. And that's the fear that this will take place. The other way, that you sit down with another countries, with another governments, under international umbrella, can be under the UN umbrella, for example, that say, hey, that's what's need to be taking place. Here's the reconciliation. This is the direction of the reconciliation, and that's the steps that you have to take on the ground. And if you are serious about healing the wound of the country of Iraq and the nation of Iraq, doesn't matter who they are. You see, I believe religion is between you and God, but your nationality as Iraqis is between you and your nation. This is, Iraq belongs to all Iraqis, not Christians, not Yazidis, not Shias, not Sunnis. Iraq belongs to all Iraqis. If you are really serious about that, you have to have an international umbrella, international monitoring, to ensure that the process of the reconciliation is really taking place with a serious recommendation And if the Iraqi Shia majority government serious about this, they will work with the international community and their local to ensure that this will happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Schellenberger, you will be our last questioner.
Thank you, and it's been great to hear your insight today, and I'm very pleased for that. As you stated, minorities are given 3 choices, but the end result is Muslim or death. Do we call this war in Iraq and Syria a religious war, or what terms should we use to call this conflict? I have asked other witnesses and am told this is not a religious war, but I am confused when a person is beheaded in the name of Allah. Is this a religious war?
Yes,
or how should we?
It is a religious war. The people that would tell you it's not a religious war because they are politically correct. One of our main cancer in our Canadian society is politically correctness. Is politically correctness.
How should one engage a religious extremist to incentivize them to tolerate religious minorities and their freedoms? Is this achievable in Iraq today?
By whom? By the Iraqi government? By ISIS? By whom?
By the world?
By the world in Iraq to achieve a religious tolerance between it. You can see this religion tolerance happening in Kurdistan. And maybe we can support this. Now, I'm not saying that the Kurdish government is an angel and doing everything right. Please don't misunderstand me. Christians in Kurdistan a few years ago in Christmas was attacked for 4 hours. The Kurdish police did not stop to help them at all. So I just need to be clear, because I'm not here to paint like, oh, it's perfect country. It's not perfect country. But I believe that religious tolerance is achievable with 2 ways in Iraq or any elsewhere in the world. Number 1, by education. I'm not talking about just education of this generation. I'm talking about education for the next generation. And you can see this example in Kurdistan to a big degree. Number 2, we have to connect our aid and our international trade to the improvement of human rights in these countries. We have to do that. We have to do that. And I'm not saying to using it as a weapon. I'm saying it as use it as giving hand. I'm not saying to cut the aid completely and fully. All what I'm saying, that I will increase my aid to you. I will increase my international trade with you. If the human rights condition is improved in your country. So if you have women's rights, I will give you more aid. I will do with you more business. If the rights of the minority is protected, if the right of the children is protected, if you are really fighting human trafficking, if you are really if you are really protecting your environment, all of this, if we can connect our aid and international trade to the improvement of human rights and other matters in these countries, you will see a huge big difference, because every government needs the aid and needs the international trade. Hurt them in their pocket and they will listen.
Thank you. And I'm going to stop with that to give you your final remarks.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Get on time then. Thank you very much, Mr. Schellenberger. So, Reverend Al-Shafi, please feel free to start your concluding remarks.
Thank you, and I thank you once again for the opportunity. I want to acknowledge Mr. Brad Butt, who came with me to Iraq, and I'm very thankful to him. I want to acknowledge Mr. David Sweet, who always been help and always been great support to our cause. I want to acknowledge Mr. Wayne Marstone, which I consider him a close and dear friend to my heart, and Mr. Erwin Cutler, he's not here. But I leave the best for the last, Ms. Elizabeth May. Thank you so much for coming here. I really appreciate that. My closing remark, regardless our political difference, and I watch the debate in the Canadian Parliament every day, regard our political parties, conservative, liberal, NDP, or Green, I can assure you that these people don't care. These people don't care. They don't care if you are conservative, they don't care if you are liberal, and they don't care if you are NDP or Green. She don't care. She don't care. It's as simple as that. So we have to move, and we have to move fast to help the people on the ground. I used to be one of them. I used to be in the prison, and I still carry the scars on my body for my Christian belief, and I'm honored to carrying them. It's a matter of honor. But if there is one thing I know about Canada as a refugee, came to this country as a refugee, I know that Canada is a temple of human rights. I know that Canada is the conscience of our world. And I know that our world is a dark place, is an unfair place, not because the people did evil, but because the people who remain silent about it. In the absence of light, darkness prevails. And if there is one thing I learned when I was in prison in Egypt, that you can always kill the dreamer, but no one can kill the dream. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for having me.
Thank you, Reverend Al-Shafi. That concludes our business for today, unless one of our members has anything administrative to bring up. And we're done, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.